Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here, and it's time for a stunts category at the Oscars. This topic seems to get brought up pretty much every year, and I think with John Wick 4 coming out, a lot of people are starting to call in the Oscars for the stunts category, and that is the movie that kind of got me interested in this conversation again, because when you watch it, you just want to throw Oscars at the screen. I can go to the theaters and watch John Wick and have my bag of Oscars next to me, and when I see some amazing cinematography, I can chuck some Oscars at the screen. If I see a giant set piece, I can chuck Oscars at the screen for production design. But then when I'm witnessing just incredible stunt work that I just have a feeling that there's Oscar worthiness in there. I look in my bag and none of the Oscars have a stunts category on them. I can't throw the stunt Oscar at the screen and it gives me blue balls. Now I've heard loads of suggestions about, categories that people want to be at the Oscars. But actually I'm not really sympathetic to many of those suggestions. I think having an Academy Award should be a big deal. It should be very difficult to achieve. I think if there was a category for young actor and actress or best ensemble cast given out to all the cast members, or a best voice performance category, that would just make it a little bit easier to be an Oscar winner. And I would think that winning in those categories feels like slightly less of an accomplishment than winning in the existing acting categories. And not to say that Eddie Murphy didn't deserve an Oscar for Shrek, but you are eligible technically in the other categories for it. I know it's underrepresented work. Many will disagree with me on that, especially the voice acting category. But think about what you're suggesting. You want a world where Josh Gad would have one, if not two, Oscars for voicing Olaf. The idea of best casting is frequently brought up, and you could give that award to a casting director, but I still feel like that award is kind of being given a little too much on the merits of the actual performers. And also sometimes it's not so clear who's responsible for a casting choice. For example, in The Joker, I don't think a casting director had the decision to cast Joaquin Phoenix. That was maybe more like Todd Phillips and maybe some of the producers who put that together. So why do I think that there should be a stunts category? If you go on IMDb and you look up the credits for any movie, there are loads of people who work in the costumes department, the makeup department, the camera and electrical department, and somebody at the head of all those departments can win an Oscar. But the stunts department is probably the most major craft branch, arguably the only crafts branch that just isn't represented at the Oscars. Maybe if you wanted to, you could argue that special effects are different than visual effects and that team should be awarded a separate award. I mean, I guess the work of like location managers or music supervisors is also not represented at the Oscars, but you see what I'm saying. Stunts, I think, is easily like the most urgent of all these. Like any other craft at its best, stunt design represents the magic of movies in as pure of a sense as anything else. Stunt coordinators and performers choreograph illusions of action that, if well executed, the audience will accept as taking place on screen. That's like the magic of make-believe in the movies. So if there was a stunts category, who would be rewarded? I think that it should be the stunt coordinator. The stunts coordinator works very closely with the director of a film to assemble a quality team of stunt doubles and performers, and they also design stunts that suit the director's vision. It's both a creative role and an administrative role, and their work bleeds in with all the other production elements. They work with the cinematographer because the illusion of stunts being pulled off often depends on where the camera is in the scene. The same goes with the production design. Stunts obviously play with the physical space of the scene, and that needs to be coordinated as well. There are a lot of creative, artistic, and character-driven decisions that can go into designing any action scene. Stunt coordinators have to have a broad knowledge of different styles of fighting and which styles they should apply to this particular movie or scene that can fit the narrative. Think of Everything Everywhere All at Once and how the fight choreography, the goofiness of it, plays into the style of the directors, while also pulling from other martial arts styles. Think about the introductory scene in The Batman, where Batman walks out of the shadows and beats the shit out of the gang of hooligans. The fighting is the introduction to this character. And from the moment that he just relentlessly pummels this first guy, we see the rage and the anger in Bruce Wayne. He's threatening, relentless, which is so important to a film that questions who the real villains are in the eyes of the public. The stunt coordinator has to evaluate the characters in every scene. Maybe there's an arc during the fight where by the beginning they're kind of learning to fight, and by the end they have this newfound sense of confidence. Is the person who's fighting methodical or scrappy? Should they appear invincible to the audience, or do they seem like a regular guy who's just kind of getting the shit kicked out of them? Are the stunts grounded or fantastical? I remember in John Wick 4, it felt like the choreography of Donnie Yen's character versus Keanu Reeves' character felt very distinct and informed who these characters were. So there are so many choices that go into stunts that are not just technical, but character driven. And all the while, stunt coordinators have to prioritize the safety of everybody involved with the shoot. So my proposal is to call the category Best Stunt Design, because that gives it a little bit of an artistic flair, you know, rather than just Best Stunts. It makes it seem a little more artful, which I think is kind of the point of this entire discussion, is that it actually is artful. And give the award to the stunt coordinator. Sure, there are stunt performers that will not get Oscars for doing stunt performances, but like with any other craft branch, there has to be like one person who's the head of the department who takes the prize, and in a way, their work kind of represents everybody who's working beneath them. If you need any more convincing that it is a legitimate craft that should be taken seriously, go watch a number of videos on YouTube that are about stunt coordinators and the challenges they face on set. Like, just look into Avatar: The Way of Water and how they had to work around the odd parameters of like the motion capture work required for the movie. There's a video of the stunt coordinator of Fast 5 talking about how for him the fulfilling part of the job is when a room full of producers tell you we're not going to be able to pull this off, and then lo and behold they are able to pull it off. And stunt coordinators also do plenty of underwater work. They do wire work. They coordinate scenes where vehicles are involved, like big car chase scenes. Go watch John Wick. Look at the scene in France where all the cars are like hitting motherfuckers like as this whole battle's going on. I mean, you don't get a scene like that unless you have masters of the craft working behind them. Chad Stileski, the film's director, used to be a stunt coordinator, and he started out as a stuntman, which is how most stunt coordinators come to be. He's also advocated for the existence of the category for a while now, and he put it well, saying, "There's one for every other department but ours. That's a no-brainer to me. We want to be recognized because we're one of the 11 main departments. We're in every fucking trailer. Most movies are sold on what we do. So why isn't there a stunt category?" Well, snobbishness is probably part of it. There's kind of a stigma around stunts, and people don't really view them as a serious craft. But with John Wick this year, and you know, we have Mission Impossible coming up, Dune Part 2 coming up, and with last year, which was one of the best years for action cinema in a long time, RRR, Everything Everywhere, which won Best Picture, The Woman King, The Batman, All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar, Top Gun, Wakanda Forever. It seems like there's never been a better time to highlight the artistic value of stunt work. Many will argue that the stunts category shouldn't exist because it will incentivize people to do more and more dangerous stunts just to win Oscars. And at first glance, I kind of sympathize with that, but thinking about it more, I feel like this is just an excuse that only non-stunt people would make that kind of pretends to be in the interest of what stunt people should want, but it's ultimately like not what stunt people want. Tom Cruise is already like climbing the Burj Khalifa and jumping out of airplanes, and there's no Oscar waiting for him. Everybody who works in stunts understands the importance of safety, and I don't think anybody is willing to jeopardize that. Another argument is that there just aren't enough Academy members who are working in stunts to form a branch. In an article published in 2015 by the LA Times, they said that there were 31 stunt coordinators in the Academy. The Academy has expanded since then, so maybe that's different. And the smallest branch was costumes with 125 people. So it's just like, oh, well, I guess we can't do a stunts category because we don't have enough stunt people. No. When the Academy didn't have enough people of color because they were 94% white, what did they do? Did they just hang their heads in shame and do nothing? No, they added people to the Academy. I'm sure that there are plenty of people who work in stunts who are worthy of being inducted into the Academy. You know, you just get that number of stunts people up to maybe 100 or more, and you can call it a stunts branch. I think if the Academy was determined to do it, they could. But I think the Academy may just not see the benefit of adding a stunts category, and especially in the last couple of years where the Academy has been trying to cut down on the amount of time they spend handing out awards. This is very much not the time, in a way, to ask them to add an extra category that would stack on 4 or 5 minutes to the show. And it is a challenge to design an awards show that has the speeches and the clips and the bits and the musical numbers and the monologues. But they also just condensed the sound categories into one category, partly probably for that reason. So it's not like they've never been able to handle 24 categories. I also think it should be easy to convince the Academy that adding this category could be a benefit for their ratings, because it seems like the obvious solution to the problem that the Academy thinks that they have with not awarding enough popular movies. I mean, they have embarrassed themselves in recent years trying to come up with ways to get more popular movies recognized. Like, even the mere proposal of the best popular film category was an embarrassment. And then they added 2 fake awards designed to get No Way Home and Oscar, and then Snyder fans, in a way that nobody could have possibly predicted, aggressively rallied behind his films and made sure that they won. If the Oscars added a stunts category, that would give them a lot of positive publicity. And being able to say, this is going to be our first awards show where we present the Stunts Award, I think that would be a cool thing for people to tune into. Now, this probably won't happen by the end of the year, but I think that there are also some other steps that maybe could be taken to kind of get us there. You know, the SAG Awards do have a stunt ensemble category. I don't really know who's like supposed to accept it or if it's just a general gesture of like the entire stunts ensemble, but maybe they could start airing their stunt awards during the show instead of announcing them on the red carpet. I think the Critics' Choice could easily add a stunts category, and that could bring attention to the idea that it should be at the Oscars. And lastly, we should discuss the possibility many have proposed about combining the stunts category with dance choreography. Because dance choreography, much like stunts, is also not represented at the Oscars, and it is choreography. It is to musicals what stunts are to action films, and the same reasoning for why stunts should be represented could easily be applied to why dance choreography should also be represented. But sometimes there aren't even like 5 live action musicals in a year, so if it was on its own, it'd kind of be an award that just goes to whatever movie comes out that has dance choreography. So it could make sense to combine that with the stunts category maybe. But stunts and dance, although they have similarities, I guess, are very, very different. And I think the biggest problem with doing this is that the branch would consist of both stunt people and dance people, and they would kind of be voting in the interest of their own groups most likely. Like I couldn't imagine that the dance people would really have much of an informed opinion on the stunts and vice versa. And also, what if you nominate RRR? Like, do you give the award to like both the dance choreographer and the stunt coordinator? I actually am kind of against this idea for that reason. There's also been concern that the Academy as a whole won't know how to properly analyze stunt work when they are voting for the winners in the category, because individual branches vote on the work in their own branch, and then the whole Academy votes on the winners. But that's already like a problem with the awards in general. You already have people who are in the music branch voting for costume design, and you have writers voting for visual effects. Sometimes that gives us winners like Bohemian Rhapsody in editing. Although Bohemian Rhapsody did win at the Eddie Awards, which is just decided upon by editors, so honestly it might have gone that way anyway. But yeah, that's already like a thing with every category. I don't know why people would be more concerned about it with stunts. I also think it'd be really interesting to see what this branch would find to be nomination worthy. Are they just gonna nominate your Marvel and your Fast and the Furious movies every year, or will they be an adventurous branch that pays attention to Bollywood and Kung Fu movies? Like, who knows? I think it'd be interesting either way. And yeah, the Oscars are just gonna have to accept that maybe like a Fast and the Furious movie is gonna get an Oscar nomination. But like I say with all the categories, like, what does it matter about the quality of a movie overall if a specific part of the film was really well done? That should be honored. As somebody whose appreciation for movies grew alongside an interest in the Oscars, learning to appreciate the crafts that the Oscars honor, from cinematography to sound mixing and production design, made me more interested in paying attention to those crafts and appreciating the work that goes behind them. I honestly think that if the Oscars had a stunts category years ago when I was getting into movies, I probably would have paid closer attention to the stunt work in movies that I watch. So to add a stunt category would really be a way for people to better understand the craft that goes into stunt work, which I didn't even really think that deeply about until recently, and watching John Wick 4 kind of made me really want to learn more about it. And I am not like some action fanboy who just wants Marvel movies to be nominated. Like, if anything, I like action movies less than the typical moviegoer. And like I said, I don't really even agree with implementing other categories. This is by far the most necessary category the Oscars could add, and I've just simply become convinced that it is only logical to add this category, considering that stunts are just a major crafts department. I have woken up to this truth, and I hope that you're also awake to the truth. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Do you deserve an Oscar for that time you did a backflip on the trampoline?